Greetings Keyforgers, I hope that you are well and welcome to the channel's first ever Winds of Exchange deck. Now I did get these decks from someone who attended KeyForge Celebration and they were willing to sell me their decks that they got to pay for their trip. So these have come all the way from America. There are 6 decks in total, 5 Winds of Exchange decks and 1 Unchained deck. I've decided to do this Winds of Exchange deck first because it has 2 returning houses. We have the Brobnar and the Mars, and then Star Alliance making the 3rd house for this deck, which is Jones the Only Cybernetic. You can have a look at the different card backs now. So this card here is the Archon card. You have the card backs of the other cards in the deck. So the other 36 cards in the deck will have this card back, and the token creature is represented next to the house that that token creature has come from. So that will change. So you'd never get this Grumpus in a Mars house. That token creature will always be represented by the house that it is next to. This one here is the back of your token creature. Much like the back of the Tide card, it's got some information on there, including some of the new rulings there. So you've got token creature, splash attack X, and then there's assault X, elusive, enrage, and exalt. Just a nice little handy rules tip for you there. This here is a quick look at the deck list for this deck. As you can see, they're set up pretty much like the Dark Tidings deck lists were. And in place of where the Tide card was usually represented, down here, you've actually got your token creature. So we know we've got a Grumpus in this deck. And we do have some enhanced cards also, as you can see by the enhanced symbol down here in the right. That is going to be the same for Anomaly, Maverick, and Legacy as well, I will assume. If we take a look at the token creature, here we have the Grumpus, 2 power. It will say token creature just underneath the name, and it has splash attack 1. So when this creature attacks, it deals 1 damage to each of the attacked creature's neighbours. Now I'm assuming that during setup you would put this token creature in the same place that the Tide card was, which will probably be to the right side of your playmat, but I don't know what the rulings are on that yet. I'm not too sure. If anyone knows, let me know. But without further ado, let's get into the deck. There is a close-up of that card back there. We're just going to turn straight over because I've already taken the token and the Archon card out. We're starting out with Brobnar. We have Strato Smack is an action. Play, deal 3 damage to a creature. If this damage destroys that creature, make a token creature. Shock Herder, 3 power with deploy. Play, ready and fight with a neighbouring creature. Rowdy Scold, 4 power. And it put 3 enhancements in the deck, 1 amber and 2 damage. Pound is an action, you get an amber when you play it. Play, deal 2 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. A second pound. Fresh Mark is an action, you get an amber when you play it. Play, destroy a friendly creature. If you do, exalt 3 enemy creatures. Fire Spitter, 5 power, 1 armor. It has a damage enhancement. Before fight, deal 1 damage to each enemy creature. A second Fire Spitter, this one without an enhancement. And a third Fire Spitter. Krog the Clumsy, 7 power, splash attack 2. Berserker Slam is an action, you get an amber when you play it. Play, deal 4 damage to a flank creature. If this damage destroys that creature, its controller loses 1 amber. Nurbor Flame Wing, 4 power. At the start of your turn, if Nurbor Flame Wing is in your discard pile, you may destroy a friendly creature. If you do, put Nurbor Flame Wing into play ready. When it's destroyed, make a token creature. On to Mars now. We have Yixlix Mesmerit, 5 power, action. A creature captures 1 amber from its own side. Mix the Tall-Minded, 5 power. Your opponent's keys cost +1 amber for each friendly Mars creature in play. Mars Needs Amber is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures 1 from its own side. Ionix Rebel, 2 power with deploy. Play. Ready each of Ionix Rebel's Mars neighbours. Clone Home is an action. Play. Make a token creature. If there are more friendly creatures than enemy creatures, archive Clone Home. A second Clone Home. Brain Dart is an action. You get an amber when you play it. Play. Enrage an enemy creature. it captures 1 amber from its own side. I have no idea how to pronounce that first part, but it is the Iron Captain, 4 power, 1 armor with a damage enhancement. Play. Each friendly Ironix creature captures 2 amber. Space Invaders is an action. Play. Reveal any number of creatures from your hand. Put each creature revealed this way into play face down as a token creature. Nyon Outpost, I believe. It's an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Action. Put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, make 2 token creatures. Airlock is another artifact. Action. Discard a non-Mars card from your hand. If you do, draw a card. Borka Rick, 4 power. Each time a Mars card is discarded from your hand, make a token creature. On to Star Alliance. We're starting out with Uplink, which is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. This creature gains action. Make a token creature for each of this creature's non-Star Alliance neighbours. A second Uplink. And a third Uplink. Red Alert is an action. Play. If there are more enemy creatures than friendly creatures, deal damage to each enemy creature equal to the difference. Photon Blast is an action. Play. Deal 2 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. If this damage destroys 1 or more creatures, make a token creature. Future Booster is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Omni ability. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck. Friendly Guide, 3 power with elusive. After you use one of Friendly Guide's neighbours, you may use Friendly Guide. Echo Reflector is an upgrade. You get an amber when you play it. This creature gains. Your opponent's keys cost +3 amber. CXO Tabber, 3 power. After fight, after reap, you may play or use a non-Star Alliance card this turn. Tactical Officer Moon, 4 power with Assault 2. Play, you may rearrange the creatures in a player's battle line. Ganymede Outpost is an artifact. You get an amber when you play it. Action. Put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, archive 2 cards. Techivore Palpate, 5 power. After a player chooses an active house, destroy each artifact of that house. And there we have it, our first Winds of Exchange deck. Let's take a closer look. Well, Keyforgers, you're going to have to bear with me. This is my first deck review for Winds of Exchange, and it's a little complicated, especially with the new token mechanic. I've tried to do the best I can, but it's not going to be perfect. If you spot anything I haven't, let me know. But we'll start out with a breakdown. There was 13 printed amber. One of those 13 was enhanced, along with 2 damage enhancements. Our token creature was the Grumpus. We had 16 creatures, 12 actions, 4 artifacts, and 4 upgrades in the deck. And we had 11 cards in total that dealt with token generation. And I think that's something that I will start keeping track of when we do Winds of Exchange openings. I'm going to do the basic amber control, expected amber, artifact control, and creature control. And then we'll talk about the other cards in the deck. Again, quite a few of them cross over. So if we start with amber control, we have Berserker Slam from Brobnar. It's a returning card. 4 damage to a flank creature. If it destroys that creature, its controller loses 1. So not only is that amber control, that is creature control as well. We had Echo Reflector, one of the upgrades for Star Alliance. This is a new card. This creature gains. Your opponent's keys cost +3 amber. That is pretty ridiculous, because if you think about some of the other creatures that increase key costs, there's usually an action, a reap effect, or an exalt involved. This is just straight, put the upgrade on, your opponent's keys cost +3 amber. Passive ability. That is pretty powerful if you ask me, for a common card. And the rest of the control was actually in Mars. Now you're going to have to bear with me, because my pronunciation of some of these Mars cards is atrocious. We have the Tall-Minded. 5 power, your opponent's keys cost +1 amber for each friendly Mars creature in play. It doesn't say other Mars creatures, so it includes itself as well. So if it's on its own, it's still a +1 to your opponent's key cost. This could be very annoying for your opponent if you have a Mars token creature in play. We had the Mesmerit, 5 power action. A creature captures one from its own side. For the majority of the time, I would assume that you'd be taking an amber from your opponent's pool and placing it on one of their creatures so that when you destroy it, you get it back. But there might be some crazy interactions with other cards where it might be more beneficial for us to put our amber on our creatures. We had the Iron Captain. Had one of those damage enhancements, 4 power, 1 armor. Each friendly Ionix creature, I believe I'm pronouncing that right, not too sure, captures 2 amber. That's when you play it. Doesn't say they have to be ready. As long as they're in play, they're going to capture it. Mars Needs Amber is a returning card. Action. Each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures one from its own side. Damaged enemy non-Mars creature. If your opponent's not playing Mars and they've got damaged creatures, they're going to capture amber from your opponent's pool. And lastly, we had Brain Dart. Action. Enrage an enemy creature. It captures one from its own side. That was amber control that I found. A lot of increasing your opponent's key cost in this deck, especially with that Mars house there. Anything that dealt with Exalt could possibly be considered expected amber. The other cards that would generate us amber were Fresh Marks. Play it, destroy a friendly creature. If you do, you get to exalt 3 enemy creatures. If we've got an abundance of token creatures, though our token creature is actually quite good, we could destroy one of them and then exalt 3 of our opponent's creatures if we knew it was going to take them out that turn. In Star Alliance, we had the Friendly Guide, 3 power with Elusive. And after you use one of Friendly Guide's neighbours, you may use Friendly Guide. That is a straight house cheat right there. It doesn't say you have to root with it or you have to fight with it. You can use it. So if you put something on it that gives it an action or an ability, you could activate that as well. CXO, Tabba, Chief Executive Officer Tabba. It's really weird seeing an old card with this after fight, after reap text on there now. But it says you may play or use a non-Star Alliance card this turn. Again, house cheat, you might want to reap and generate the amber. And then we had the Ionix Rebel, 2 power with deploy. And when you play it, you ready each of its Mars neighbours. So be sure you use them or reap with them first. Mars has come back and Mars is doing the Mars thing of multiple uses of creatures a turn, which is kind of what they were known for back in the Core of the Archons, Age of the Archons days. We do have artifact control in this deck, and it comes from a creature, Techivore Palpate, 5 power, so it's quite a big creature, and it has a passive ability of after a player chooses an active house, destroy each artifact of that house. Now we've got 4 artifacts in the deck. They're pretty good artifacts. It would take a really game-changing artifact for my opponent to play for me to put Techivore Palpate in play, unless I knew it was going to die, because it would restrict me from picking a house if I wanted to keep my artifacts in play. As for creature control, the majority was in Brobnar, as you would expect. And we'll start out with Shock Herder, one of the new cards. 3 power deploy, play, ready and fight with a neighbouring creature. That is a house cheat as well. So that is an out of turn house cheat for another creature to fight. We have Strato Smack. Play, deal 3 damage to a creature. If this damage destroys that creature, you make a token creature. So not only is it direct damage, if you time it right, you can actually get a Grumpus on the field as well. Krog the Clumsy, big 7 power creature, but it has that splash attack. So when it attacks, it will deal 7 damage to the creature, and then it will deal 2 damage to either side of the creature it attacks. We had 3 Fire Spitter, 5 power, 1 armor. Before fight, deal 1 damage to each enemy creature. And one of them hit that final damage enhancement. When I played with a few of these decks, I found that anything that can deal a blanket 1 damage is pretty strong against token creatures. There's an artifact in Brobnar, the autocannon, which is returned, which is when a creature enters play, it deals 1 damage to that creature. This completely nullified one of my opponent's token creatures because it was 1 power and it didn't have a destroyed effect. It had a passive effect. So Brobnar, very, very good at controlling the board. They've come back very fierce in this set and they are so much fun to play. We had 2 pound, 2 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. There is so much direct damage here, controlling the board. There was a big board wipe, but it was red alert. Returning card, if there are more enemy creatures than friendly creatures, you deal damage to each enemy creature equal to the difference. So if your board has been wiped, this is a very good card. With the amount of token generation in this deck, I don't feel that we will ever be behind on board unless we are board wiped, or our opponent's deck is even better at churning out creatures than this deck is. And in Star Alliance, we also have the Photon Blast. 2 damage to a creature with 1 damage splash. Again, direct damage in this is nuts in this deck. If this damage destroys 1 or more creatures, again we make a token creature, so another Grumpus on the board, which again has splash attack. The other cards in the deck, I'll just go through them now for you. Nybor Flamewing, 4 power. It's a rare in Brobnar with that passive effect of at the start of your turn, if it's in your discard pile, you can destroy a friendly creature. If you do, you put Flamewing into play ready. So it returns like an even better Relentless Creeper, but you have to make a sacrifice to do it. It's a Phoenix, it fits in kind of thematically with the whole reborn thing, but when it is destroyed, you make a token creature. I like it, the artwork on that is fantastic. We had the Rowdy Scold in Brobnar. Each house seems to have at least one of these 4 power enhancement creatures. And when I mean enhancement creatures, it puts enhancements in the deck. And it tends to be a mixture of 2. Usually get this one here is an amber and 2 damage. I've seen ones for capture and 2 draw. Each house has a different one with a different set of enhancements that goes in it. In Star Alliance, we had the returning Tactical Officer Moon to rearrange creatures in a player's battle line. And we had the 3 Uplink. Now Uplink, I think, is not only a really cool card, but probably the biggest flavor text that I've seen on a Keyforge card to date. The upgrade gives the creature the action to make a token creature for each of this creature's non-Star Alliance neighbours. So positioning in your battle line, very important if you want to utilise these. So that Tactical Officer Moon, rearrange the creatures in a player's battle line, could be your own as well. Have all 3 out on the board. You put all 3 on Star Alliance creatures and you don't give them Star Alliance neighbours. You can action 3 times and make 6 Grumpuses. Best case scenario. Ganymede Outpost, new artifact. Put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, archive 2 cards. Now, it might sound confusing. When I first read it, I was like, can I put my opponent's creature on the bottom of their deck and then archive 2 of my cards? No. It's put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. It's because there's quite a lot of creature exchange cards, especially in House Ecuador in this set, so you might be gaining control of your opponent's creatures. It just says that you could do that. It is a friendly creature for you, but when you put it on the bottom of a deck, it goes back to its owner's deck, and then I can archive 2 cards. So a very, very nice way of speeding up our deck, actually. And speaking of speeding up, we had Future Booster, another artifact in Star Alliance, Omni ability, so activate it on any turn. Look at the top card of your deck. You may put it on the bottom of your deck. Very good if you're thinking about making token creatures. If there's a card where you're like, I don't need it now, but I really don't want it to be a token creature, this is very good for almost stacking your deck and making sure you don't put that all-important card as a token in play. In Mars, and I must say, I love Mars as well and the way it has returned, we have the Airlock, an artifact with an action of discard a non-Mars card from your hand if you do draw a card. Speed, efficiency there. We have the Neon Outpost, another artifact. Action, put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, make 2 token creatures. Now this is almost the same as the Ganymede Outpost for Star Alliance. So I'm assuming that there will be 1 in each house and each will have a different effect. So put a friendly creature on the bottom of its owner's deck. If you do, make 2 token creatures. The token generation in this deck is insane. We had Space Invaders. Reveal any number of creatures from your hand and put each creature revealed this way into play face down as a token creature. Flood the board with Grumpuses. Clone Home, very nice wordplay there for ET Extraterrestrial Phone Home. Love it. Play. Make a token creature. Straight out. Full stop. First part. You're going to do that if you can't do anything else. And then, if there are more friendly creatures than enemy creatures, so if you control the board, you get to archive Clone Home. Now with the amount of token generation in this deck, pretty good chance that both of these clone homes are going to end up in our archive. Borka, Rick. Each time a Mars card is discarded from your hand, make a token creature. So if you want to discard a Mars card, if you feel like you need more Grumpuses on the board, you can use this ability. And it is a passive ability. If your opponent forces you to discard cards, this will still activate. Punctuated Equilibrium, Mindfire, anything that kicks cards out of your hand that your opponent plays will still activate this token generation. I know some of you like to know ratings. Unfortunately, there aren't any available for these decks yet. And I think actually it's going to be quite hard to rate these decks because of the token interaction. When we played, what we did find was that a lot of the games went almost to time or to time. In fact, we were playing them casually. So one game that I played with a friend of mine actually lasted around about an hour. So these decks can produce long games, and also, and I'm not over exaggerating here, the battle lines go off your playmat. Token creature generation, if it's up there, you might need to take 2 playmats, play on a bigger table. It's going to get absolutely insane with battle lines here. And I haven't actually seen that many board clears in this set yet, but again, I've only sampled these 6 decks. So that was the first Winds of Exchange deck. The next one I'm going to do is the Unchained deck that I received, purely because it is the only deck that came with House Equidon, and I really want to show you some of those new cards. All that remains for me to say is good luck, have fun, keep forging.